Welcome to The Human Edge. This week's guest is Stevie Griffiths. Stevie's journey takes him from professional boxing to youth work to social entrepreneurship and everything in between. Absolutely fascinating journey, and I loved hearing about it from him. I hope you do too. And if you do, please share, like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. It'll be massively helpful. Thank you. Stevie, one of the things I haven't asked you yet, and something that I've always been curious about, is the transition from elite sport to normal life. What was that like for you?
Well, actually, for me, because I always kept up an amount of work, of my regular work, because I was running like my own decorating company with a partner, and he used to do a lot of the work. I used to just go around doing some pricing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we kept that going for the first couple of years while I was still boxing, and I had that as well. And I was just really, on the road, just going around looking at proper prices and pricing places and looking at the work, etc. Meeting potential clients, etc. And he did the sort of foreman bit, going around to the jobs, making sure the painters were doing their thing. So I was always sort of had something else going on.
Yeah.
When I did it solely, when I solely did the boxing, I don't think I've long enough to really. It wasn't sort of. I didn't feel like that was the only thing I did.
Yeah.
Do you know? I always felt that I was up to something else.
Yeah.
So more than that, in stopping the boxing, it was just not having the paraphernalia that goes with it all. I mean, the training is the thing.
Yeah.
You're training every day.
Yeah.
And to suddenly not have that, and it was sudden. It was like, oh my God, like, what do you do? And it doesn't hit you until, straight away you don't think about those, that the everyday sort of habits that you have.
Yeah.
They're habits you don't even realise.
Yeah.
Then when suddenly it's gone, suddenly you're sort of left thinking, what now? It's
like a big void.
A big void. And I think that's the bit which can kick into emotionally create quite a few, or mentally create quite a few issues.
Yeah. Was it like that for you?
Well, no. Here's my saving grace.
Yeah.
So an injury, had to pack up boxing. Every day of the week I'm doing something, whether it's running, whether it's in the gym. Suddenly it stops. My mum actually, she probably gave me the best bit of advice. She said, "Look, just go and study." She said, "Just do something part time if you need to. Just go and study. Don't just take a couple of years out." And literally that's what I did. I went and studied for a couple of years.
What did you study?
At that point, I went and studied. I studied sports management and psychology, and that's what I did in that little period there. And I also did a youth work qualification on top of that as well.
Okay.
So there's three things I took away after my studies: was a qualification in sports management, a qualification in youth work, and a really good understanding of psychology, which I later went on to do a degree in psychology.
Okay. So going then back in time to when you were younger, you were kind of excellent at a number of different sports.
Yeah.
Rugby, football, boxing too.
Yeah.
So what was it about boxing then that led you to a career in elite boxing rather than football or rugby?
Yeah. Oh, and athletics was the other one.
Okay. You really were multi-talented.
Yeah. Athletics was the other one. So what led me to take on the boxing was I was good at it. I was best at that by far. I'd won 4 national titles as a young child, or up to the age of 16. I turned pro at 18, so I had 2 years. I only had a year as a senior, actually, a year as a senior fighter. So once you turn 17, you're a senior fighter. Okay. You can fight anyone. I went into the ABAs, and actually I got beat in the London finals of the ABAs by the previous ABA champion. So it was a bit of the young and up and coming against an older. He was 32, I was 17,
Okay.
and he did outcraft me in the ring in the end.
Yeah.
And you know, that was, you know, so I'd done everything as an amateur in terms of winning all the different titles. For me, there was no question that was the sport I was going to do. And actually, I made that decision around 15 or 16. I made that decision because I remember, it was quite a good story. I was due to play in due to box, in the national semi-finals, the schoolboy finals. I was 15, due to box in the semi-finals. I had a rugby game on the Tuesday before the Saturday of this fight. And in rugby, I was a marked man. So everyone knew, just get him in, they won't win. Just now this guy.
You were the best player on the team.
Now this guy. And I played in the centre. I was a centre, and the ball just came out to me, and I just ran.
Yeah.
And I was a good runner.
Yeah.
I was good with my handoffs, and it was always going to come out a winner. So I had this this rugby final. The team who we were up against knew to get me. They got me.
And in that, I mean, rugby these days is a pretty brutal game.
Yeah.
In those days, there was so much that went on that doesn't go on now.
Yeah, and this, you know, you're 15 years of age, and this made me pack up rugby. So it wasn't a hard choice about packing up rugby, because it was getting harder because teams did begin to mark me, and I needed to have other strategic things going on around for me to really shine, and that's not going to happen in school. Maybe if I'd have joined Saracens like I was offered, it would have been different. But I got smashed in this game. I had stitches above my eye, or one or two stitches above my eye. In my knee, I had a couple of stitches. Well, I turned up in the gym on the Tuesday night. My coach just looked at me, he just shook his head. What have you done? What are you doing? You're fighting on Saturday, and you look at you. How are you going to fight? Because you have to go for a quick medical before the fight. Yeah. And it's quite funny because the eye, what they did, it wasn't a stitch, it was like the butterfly stitches. It wasn't a real stitch. So by the end of the week, it looked better. Makeup there. Yeah. They tidied it all up. Went through the doctor there, and then my coach gave me tips. He was just like, okay, to just sort of turn more that way. We did a little rehearsal how it's going to go. Got through the medical. Thought sort of, I wasn't hobbling, but like conscious of my knee. And that just protected my left eye, and got through the fight and won on points, and that was me through the semi-finals to the finals. Okay. So that was my decision on rugby, made up. Yeah, and no more rugby.
And football and athletics, was it?
So football was. I tell you what happened in football was actually I began to not be so happy playing football when I went to West Ham Academy at I would have been 13. And again, at 15, it became a situation where I did spend some time there, but the team, I was just fast. I was fast, I was strong. If the ball was played through to me, no one was catching me, I was on it. And I needed to be more technical. Yeah. And I never really developed a great technical ability. And I needed to at West Ham in particular, that they were known for that sort of style of football. So that never really developed. So it was a bit demoralising really, because the team didn't play to my strength. Therefore I wasn't starting all the time. I was playing up front with Tony Cottee, who is a well-known footballer and did very well. Yeah. He was good then as well, and he had his parents there all the time as well, so it was always pretty much, he was the golden boy. But he was good enough, he was better than I was, and so really it was quite demoralising. I was just like, no, I'm always on the bench, I'm not getting games. This is not what I want to be doing anyway. So that made my mind up there. Yeah. Athletics, athletics was an easy one because there wasn't much money in athletics in those days. So I was like, I'm not going to do a career in athletics because I want to make money as well. So that was an easy one to shut the door on. I got to the All England finals one year. Used to win the Middlesex every year without foul. Just go out there, sprint, win that. I used to 100 and 200. So I was really I was pretty. What's the word when you're honoured? Is it honoured? No, badges, lots of badges. Yeah.
Okay. Is there something about so in boxing, athletics too, you have a team around you, but it's just you. Yeah. It's an individual sport. With football and rugby, it's a team, so a different dynamic, and maybe those dynamics didn't suit you as well as
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the other thing. It was always about, it's all about me. I know what I've got to do.
Yeah.
If I fail to do what I have to do, then I'm not going to win. I'm not, and that came home in both sports. In the football, in the sense that I needed the team to be playing through balls, to be, just playing them down along the ground. Didn't want nothing high. Didn't want to have anything I had to control. Just a nice through balls. Yeah. I knew what I wanted, and they weren't able to supply that. Yeah. Therefore, for me, that was a non-runner. Yeah. With rugby, same thing. Like I could get the ball, I'd run, and I was making it happen. Mm. At that time, also there wasn't, and even there's probably more now, but there wasn't much money in rugby either. Mm. But certainly, I felt the individual bit where it was down to me. Yeah, I make this work or I fail. It's up to me, and I really like that. That really did, hit home with me. Yeah.
And what was so I said just before that team game versus individual, but even individual sport, you have a team around you. What did in boxing? What did that look like for you?
So, when I first turned professional, there was I had my coach was actually my manager, and which wasn't a good thing. So this is what they used to do back in the day. Your coach was your manager as well, and taking all the percentage out of your purse. But also, were they necessarily making the right fights for you? It needed to be more distance on that. Yeah. So really, it was just him, and there was three of us in the maybe there was about five of us actually in the stable at the time. So there was 5 boxers, and it was him, and then we had a guy who used to do some of the training as well, and do the cuts and that sort of stuff. So it was only that was the team when I first turned. Yeah. However, after I left that manager and went with Matchroom. Remembering we were the first Matchroom fighters, it was a different ball game. It was really, really like suddenly you saw more people around. We had our own gym, Matchroom gym. Then you saw like there were people doing like your portfolio. There were people doing your bookings. People doing your medical. Everyone was there, So it was like there was more people. Yeah. It's still a lonely sport, because really, you have this relationship with your manager, and in fact, we sort of kept the same manager because the manager came over. Being young, we kept the same manager. We were with the same manager. He came to Matchroom as well at first, and then we had a different coach. So you had a manager, a coach, and then you had your promoter as well. And so you had the 3 different people who I suppose were your team really. So we all had the same team of people. Yeah,
you said it's lonely. It's lonely, and I can imagine the ring itself can be a very lonely place. Were you afraid ever in the ring?
There's one thing that I suppose it's trauma really that sits with me always, and it's that bit before you going into the ring when you're in the changing room, and there might be 2 or 3 of you in the changing room.
That still sits with you even now.
I think I know how sort of what would be the word to use. There was apprehension at that point. You had to. How I used to do it, I used to just say to myself, "It's another man." 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. That's what it is at the end of the day. Yeah, and as soon as you touch that canvas and get in the ring, you're fine. Yeah. But in the changing room, that waiting time, we used to always talk. You have different ways of coping with it, but we always used to talk to each other and say, "I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy." That was the main saying when you're in this moment. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Yeah. And I think no matter what someone says, "Oh, I love it," there's that bit inside you which is like, that bit of worry, if you like,
Yeah. I'm in my head as you're talking. I'm equating it. I don't know if this is true or not, but like to soldiers going to war. There must be something similar in that.
And I think there's a saying that's said a lot in boxing. It's a special creed of person who can get in the ring and start, punching up someone else or getting punched up themselves. When you go in, you never go to get punched up. Yeah. Although there are people, journeymen, who I think do have a different mindset, and I take my hat off to those guys as well, because I knew a few when I was boxing, and a few of them worked it out as well. Didn't think they knew they weren't going to be champions, world champions, area champions, British champions, whatever, but they knew they could look after themselves, and they went in there to look after themselves.
So they had a longer career. They took certain fights for the money, knowing that they were going to lose because they just weren't good enough. And they had a technique that enabled them not to take too much punishment.
Not to take too much punishment, not to get stopped, not to get knocked out, take people to distance so you didn't have to have time out before your next fight. Pack in quite a few fights in the year, make good money. But, there's this, and that, I think that's very clever, because I think there's a lot of there's more fighters who go in and think they're going to be the best. You can't all be the best, and a lot of them are never going to be the best. So, if you can really go in with that sort of, it's almost like a business plan. If you can go in with that business plan, actually you're pretty smart. You are pretty smart. So no matter what people are saying, he gets smacked up every time he fights. He's not getting smacked up and he's earning good money. I mean, yes, getting hit around the head does no one any good. We all know that, but we're all in the sport.
What's it like losing?
I suppose it does depend how you lose. It does depend how you lose. But I think, I had 2 fights, I think, where I got stopped, basically. Later on in the fight, I got stopped. And that isn't nice at all. Because
and just, I think I understand what you mean, but for the audience, does that mean being knocked out, or does that mean getting to a place where you can't, your corner throws in the towel or whatever?
It's that one. So it's not knocked out. It's where, in my case, both times I got put down. Went down on one knee. Got up, and the ref says no more. He
you're not safe to continue.
So that was both times that happened. And there was and one time it happened, I was actually boxing Pat Cowdell, who was former British and European champion, fought for the world title as well. And I'd come back from France. I'd actually come back from a defeat in France. I had 2 defeats on the trot, and they were both to world-class fighters. And both times I just got outwitted, I was young, and it was like these guys were seasoned, they were very good, both champions of their countries, and we won box for the world title. The other one was European contender as well, and outclassed. I was outclassed. So it wasn't. So in fact, when you talk about what's it feel like to lose, I should have been in there with those guys. That was mismanagement. Before I was with Matchroom, that was mismanagement. I shouldn't have been in there, and so I was able to, after reflection, able to rationalise. At the time, you're like down, but not really down, because I know how good these guys were, and the fight plan in both fights never really came off. So the plan, being young, was to go in there, was to sort of really match, just be too energetic and active for my opponents, but they had ring craft, they had amazing ring craft, and I never managed to pin them down like I needed to, and consequently, later on in the fight I got tired because of the amount I was putting into it, and it was just like a few body blows, down you go, get up, and you just like look like you're exhausted, so the ref calls a halt to it. So both fights went the same way, and as I say, I came out lost, but it was somewhat a fight I shouldn't have been in. Maybe 5 years, 2 years down the line, it would have been a different proposition. Disappointed, but not. It didn't deter me. Put it that way. The only thing that deterred me was the purse, because it wasn't. It wasn't.
No. In my mind, I'm drawing like parallels between boxing and kind of life outside. In terms in life, we get knocked down. We get things happening to us that we haven't foreseen. And I'm wondering what lessons you were able to take from your career in the ring that were able to kind of stand you in good stead. In the years after.
I think it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, even now, 30 years on, I look back through things that happen, events that happen. I'm like, definitely down to my resilience. Where did that resilience come from? In the boxing ring. Definitely down to my dedication. Where did it come from? My motivation. There are so many things you can gain out of being a high-level sportsman, or good-level sportsman even. The work it takes to get you to that is unbelievable, and And I use this a lot in my work now when I'm talking to young people, because everything requires work. It just does not happen like that.
Yeah.
And there is we're in a world at the moment where, especially with youth, where there's a lot of young people thinking that way.
Yeah, the perception is, from what we see on social media, that the success almost happens overnight. Yeah. Nobody sees the years of work. That goes in.
And I think even people that, it'd be good to see the grind that some of these people that make it on social media even really have.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them grind, and I know how they work to get to that point.
Yeah.
But all you see is the end product.
Yes.
And then that's what all the Gen Zs and so forth are seeing.
Yeah. I asked you about fear a little bit before, and kind of that feeling of apprehension that you had in the changing room before you went into the ring. Are you afraid of anything in your working life? I'm not talking about things happening to the family, but in your working life, are you apprehensive, to use your word, about anything now?
No. It's quite a weird feeling, and again, I take this from boxing as well. Nothing frightens me, and everything is a challenge. Or if it is frightening me, it becomes a challenge. And the more it frightens me, the more of a challenge it becomes. So the fright doesn't come into, the challenge comes into.
Okay.
I look for solutions on everything I do.
Yeah.
And I think that is also my boxing style was very much about finding openings, picking people to pieces, and just dissecting the whole sort of my opponent. Now, that's very much how I see life. Solutions. We have to look for solutions, and if we work from a solution-focused position, we've got a much better chance of coming out on top.
Yeah.
If we steam in, fighting, like crazy, it's not going to work. If we back off and don't do anything, it's not going to work. I think you just got to be diligent and very, very, and you got to plan well.
Yeah. Do you create challenges for yourself when none exist?
I don't think I do openly do that. I think I'm quite a thorough person. I'm very reflective, so we'll look at stuff and try and look at the best way to solve the problem, if you like.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily finding more problems, but often, when you're reflective like that, you will see more.
Yeah.
And you will address those things that you see.
Yeah, and the deeper you dig in whatever it is that you're working on, the more you
That's
find,
right,
the more challenges.
You open up the Pandora's box. And,
Yes.
but I think in my work, I think a lot of the time I have to open up the box. When I'm working with people at the end of the day, and it's like young people, and it's trying to progress them in their lives. So really, the more we can come to terms with, the more we can help them resolve things that are going on for them, the more likely it is that they're going to have they're in a better position to go forward.
What's the biggest challenge you're working on at the moment?
At the moment, the biggest challenge at the moment is the charity which I'm the CEO of. We're just about to lose our building after 10 years in that space. So we had a lease for 10 years.
Just before you carry on, so again for the audience, what is the charity?
So
what do you do?
Yeah, the charity is Copenhagen Youth Project.
Okay.
It's a youth charity. I was one of the original founders 21 years ago. The other two, who were a bit older, have moved on. They moved on quite a while ago, actually. For the last sort of 12 years, I've been, the CEO of that organisation, and based in off Caledonia Road on Copenhagen Street.
So this is the King's Cross.
Just off the King's Cross site. Yeah. And there, the charity has been, for the last 10 years, has been housed in a purpose-built community centre, which we were lucky enough to get allocated. Above us, you've got residents who are some social housing, some private housing, and unfortunately, some of them, and I say unfortunately, it could have been fortunately, but it is unfortunately, some of them own part of the freehold, which has meant, along with the landlord, they have a vote on who goes in the purpose-built youth centre.
Right.
We have a great youth centre. We have studios in there. We have podcast studios. We have obviously pool, table tennis, TVs, the whole lot. Kitchen.
It's like an amazing place for young people to be in.
To hang out, to chill, to be. And what we also got to remember is that little bit there is quite a challenging area. I think people have bought thinking they're on the King's Cross site, but you're not on the King's Cross site. There's a lot of social housing around there, and then you get a lot of children, and then you get then you do tend to get issues as well.
Yeah.
So the issues that have happened out and around the youth centre, not always related to Copenhagen Youth Project, but anything that's related to a young person, the residents believe it's us. It's us being there, our presence. So at the moment that they've managed to vote us out, well, it's going to happen. We've got a very slim chance of remaining there. Recent emails suggest there's no chance. Legally, we can't. And this community aren't going to come out and say, hold on a minute, this is wrong. Yeah. The social housing side of the block, they're fine. So that even...
There's the private ownership.
Which even says to you more that... So they're going to have either probably a toddlers club there or an older pensioners club there or something like that, but not young people. I sort of understand, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say, it's all wrong, but it's a shame that they can't work with us. It's a shame we can't look at solutions. Yeah. And we have tried to look at solutions, but they're not willing to, bend on anything really. This is a very broad question. Let's see where we go with it. What do young people need that society's not providing? No, it's good. I think. That's a good question. I don't think it's so broad because I could probably sum that up with a couple of things that I see. The first thing I see is education. The system doesn't work. Doesn't work for so many children and young people, especially where young people are vulnerable and coming from, struggling families. It struggles to support those children.
And just specifically, so if those kids, those kind of kids are in school, what aren't the schools giving them that they need? Well,
I think it's that bit of the challenge between vocational studies and academia. We run youth services. We call it informal education. We have so much success with those young people that we're almost proving that it works.
Yeah. So you're giving them skills, like life skills.
Life skills. Yeah. But also teaching them through other mediums. So if you have a music project or a film project, you can teach everything through that.
Yes, you can.
Everything. Even when you come down to English and history and maths, you can teach these things. Yeah. So for me, it's like, so those young people that fall out of that system because they haven't got the best foundation, let's say, they struggle to come back. They really struggle to come back because once you enter that unfortunately downward spiral, and if you do get excluded, even if you're not permanently excluded, a lot of the time it leads to a permanent exclusion. But once you're in that little bubble, that little world, it's very difficult to come out because you begin to identify with that group. There's a period when children from primary, transition period from primary to secondary, is a massive we need to do so much work there, more work. I've done a few projects where we've just worked on transition and working with those children and seeing children just so excited about what they're going to be when they get older. And, before they go to secondary school, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be there, I'm going to do that, I can't wait. I see them a year later when they've gone into secondary school and they are, like literally, if it was about a size thing, they've shrunk because suddenly they're surrounded by loads more people, loads more challenges, and they may be really smart in their school, but when they go to this new school, there's loads more people as well, just as smart. And it's a struggle, especially if you don't have a foundation there that is strong enough to continue to keep you, to build you, to maintain you, to to support you when things aren't going right, and just say, go again, you're there when you come back. So I think education is very difficult for a lot of children and young people, and there needs to be some changes to the system. I think the other thing I would say is probably, there's a gap between, there's a big gap between how young people, the information and support that they can get. So as you know, I run Fish Tank, which is a incubator for young entrepreneurs, and we try to bring in more entrepreneurs who are not, who haven't got that start, haven't got that leg up, don't really know so much about it, but have great ideas and are focused on their work. I've seen recently how the gap of getting resources, and that resource may just be another professional talking to you. That gap might be getting into a network meeting, getting into a business meeting, getting introduced to potential partners. These are the things the gap is massive. They don't get into these spaces. And we've been doing a piece of work on that now, where we can help to improve that, help to make that better, help to create more opportunities to access those people, that information, that support system. So I think, if you build progression into your youth project, which you should do, like a school should be progression for any young person, the next stage of progression, then we see more gaps there, and we need to start to bridge those gaps. So I think the education in the first place, and secondly, how do you really, as a young adult, get the support and get into the things you really need to if you're not around those circles?
Where are the opportunities?
Yeah. And I mean, if you look at when they brought apprenticeships in, apprenticeships have been around for years, but they've changed the scheme of apprenticeships over the years. And, I looked at some apprenticeships the other day that Google were offering. You needed 5 A stars just to get onto the apprenticeship.
But this goes back to the education system, right?
Exactly.
Because businesses and schools are valuing grades.
Yeah.
And if you're on simply a grade-based system, then then a huge swathe of the student population that's not what they're good at.
Yeah.
Right?
So what I might ask, and what I've asked, and what I've been trying to put together, is these corporations, like if Google are in a position like that, they want to get some apprenticeships, why not offer 10 apprenticeships in a different way?
Yeah.
So you do a project.
Yeah.
You invite 10, 20 people in, you're going to choose 10, and they're going to do a project. Work on a small project, maybe a month project. And then you look at what they produce at the end of that, and then you select on those bases, rather than
the grades.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That would be another way of doing it. It'd be a way that you see how people work, you see how people take information, and you see what people deliver. Yeah. So that's the sort of thing I'm trying to push with those type of companies, that they look at a different way of helping talented and creative young people access their industry.
Yeah. It strikes me that one of the roles you're playing for the young people that you work with is the role of a mentor. Who were the mentors for you earlier on in life?
For me, certainly my boxing coach from a young age, although he turned out to be a gambler and a womanizer, which I didn't see until later on in life because I was a child. But as a child, he took me to 4 British titles. He really did do all he could for me. Money ruined it, I think, in the end. Because when money came into the scene and I turned professional, suddenly it was a different. Suddenly he changed into something completely different. Although it was probably that all along. But when I was a child, I had nothing to give to him other than a sort of maybe he was building me to be this good fighter in the future,
he was a cash cow.
He was investing that in me. Yeah. So I think, but he was because he did train me. He did create the mindset which I needed to win everything that I won as a kid.
And as we said before, that mindset has stayed with you
Yeah.
throughout your adult life.
Yeah. And I suppose the other one would be my mum. You know, my dad wasn't around. My mum always just said, rightly or wrongly, she said when we were young, I have 4 sisters, and she said I was the only boy at that point. Another boy came along 10 years later to my stepfather.
Yeah.
But initially, she said, you know, we grew up in it was quite difficult in terms of colour then as well, in the 70s. And she said, you know, you're black, you've got to work harder. That's it. Period. You know, you need to work harder. So...
And just on that, has anything changed?
Maybe it hasn't. I mean, so this is how it looks for me. I still have that in my mind, a bit like the trauma around the boxing. I still have that.
Yeah.
So I will always be aware of it. But what I did realise, so she said that to me, and at a young age, maybe 12, 11, maybe even a bit younger. But what was good about that was she didn't put a chip on my shoulder. She always said, you can do as well as anyone, but you're going to work harder. She always said, you can do anything, you just got to work harder. Now, what that did for me, which is really interesting, is I sort of it wasn't until later on in life, and I was 20, I finished boxing, I went and worked for setting up these homeless projects for young people. And when I was doing this, I remember going to a meeting, and I'm going for a meeting with the director of housing in Broxbourne. It was the borough of Broxbourne in Cheshunt.
Okay.
And it was in the housing offices, and I was sitting there. It was me, it was an Asian family, me. The person came out, what happened was over the microphone, because Stevie Griffiths comes to the housing needs reception. I was meeting with the director of housing, the housing needs director. And then, like, I was sitting there, I was in reception, so I just stayed sitting. Second time, the same call, Stevie Griffiths, please come to the housing reception. Sitting there, I'm there, me, Asian family. Next thing I know, a woman finally came out and said, are you Stevie Griffiths? And I went, yeah, it's me.
Yeah.
Shock.
Yeah.
And I, from that moment, I was like, okay, what my mum said, you know, you have to work harder. Yeah, I've got that. Colour isn't everything, but it matters. Yeah, so it's not everything, but it matters. And in my work in Broxbourne, I had a few incidents in Broxbourne. One where I went to play pool in a pub with my brother, who is mixed race. They clearly had a pool table there. They had queues. No, they would have had queues because it was a pool table. It was only me and him in the pub. We said, could we play pool? He said, we haven't got any. We haven't got no pool queues. What are you talking about? Of course you've got pool queues. He said, you got a pool table? No, we haven't got any. My brother was a little bit more like, persuasive, and we got him in the end. But that was something else I was met with. So, you know, being aware of your colour is important. But it's right, it isn't everything. It doesn't stop you from achieving. Yeah. It doesn't stop you from becoming a manager, becoming a director, from, you know, doing all the things that everyone else can do. You just got to be aware, and then you've got to play the game. Yeah.
And do you see that the kind of the kids that you work with, and your own kids, what's their experience like of being black or mixed race?
Yeah,
you know?
I think the kids I work with, I think, you know, they see it as a barrier. They do see it as a barrier, and part of our work is to help them not to see it as a barrier. Yeah. So they do see it as a barrier.
Do they see it as a barrier because that's the experience that they've had growing up?
I think it's a combination of the experience they've had and what they're told. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So they haven't experienced everything, and in fact, I would say more is what they're told and what they hear than their experience. And that's why I try and come from the point where I say almost forget what you're hearing told. Go out and do your own thing. And then when you experience it, or when it happens to you, then we look at that.
Yeah.
We look at the solution.
Yeah.
But right now, you just go out and you do it and you push. You know.
Yeah.
So my mum's saying comes into her mind.
Yeah.
You know, just go out there and work bloody hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
Yeah. Are you telling them that they've got to work twice as hard, or is the message?
The message has slightly changed in that I talk about working smart.
Yeah.
I'm working smart, you know, because, and there's been so many changes, you know, from you know, sort of that, you know, most big companies now have their D&I directors, officers, don't they?
Yes.
So it's really changed, you know. So that bit where everyone's going to the pub and I wasn't you know, I didn't feel comfortable because I don't drink, you know, so I didn't want to go, and then I'm not in the group. You know, none of that should exist in companies. But you know, going back to my own children, and I've got two sets, sort of an older set and a younger set. So I've had two experiences which have been really, really useful. Hard work, but useful. Yeah. I think the older two, they basically were. I think social media. They were not exposed to so much social media. It wasn't around as much. It wasn't around. So it's been very different for them. And I think the experience of racism, if you like, was or overt racism was quite small for them. And we addressed those issues at the time, and we managed to, you know, sort of resolve them quite quickly and quite easily. And if you spoke to them, this is what they would say, not really, probably. Whereas my children now, and it might be about awareness, because of what they see on social media, are much more aware, and much more like, you can't say that, you can't do that, they can't do that, they can't say that. Yeah. So it's much more, and I don't think it's wrong that they've got so much information and they're pointing everything out. I do sometimes think, you know, you need to breathe, you need to take a breath and think about what you're coming back with now and why you're coming back with that, if you like, you know. Have you really thought about why you're saying what you're saying? Because a lot of it does come from, you know, social media. I mean, that might be when they come in and say, my teacher's really racist. Why did you say that? And then they'll come up with a reason why, and I'm like, well, maybe it's not that, is it? Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe they didn't. You know, I just try and get them to think, pause and think, you know.
Different perspectives, this social media gives us one view of things, right? And it's important that we try and have a much more of a 360-degree view of every situation.
That's definitely how I see it. I just think, I always, I use the term, just take a breath, pause, then come back. And I use that quite a lot in my work and my discussions. You know?
Did you learn that again, going back to the boxing?
I think so. I think. Well, definitely. The thing that I learned from boxing is, as I said, I was a boxer. I wasn't a fighter. I didn't want to get hit. I didn't want to get hurt. I just wanted to, you know, pick people off and beat them. Obviously. Some people said I didn't have enough of a killer instinct because I was doing that, and, you know, without pointing them easily and not really finish them off. But that pause bit is definitely where you need to think before you dive in and get hit by a punch. I'm get hit by a punch, so I'm thinking how I'm going to do that, you know. So I do think that fundamentally that's where it comes from. All those years of training as a kid and training in that way, where you're very, very where you're working to create openings, you're working to not get hit. I do think that pause bit comes from there. If I catch someone, I'm not going to steam in because they could catch me again.
Yes.
It's like if someone says something to you and you open your mouth in the wrong way, you know something could come back verbally, which could kill you.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So think about it and then say it.
Yeah.
So I do think that is how I've been able to do that. But I am a quite calm person anyway, just, you know, by nature. I also did a little bit of Buddhism, which
oh, did you?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Which also taught me about you know, reflection and time and managing time and stretching the day, and you know, people have shit going on which you don't know, so
Yeah.
you can't dive in and start saying stuff. And that's a bit like the diving in and saying, "No, you're racist." Well, no, I'm not going to dive in and say that to anyone. I'm going to say, "Do you realise what you just said?"
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Have a think about it, and I like that. I when I get that back from someone as well, I love it. I love it when people are like that, respond in that way, talk in that way.
What I wanted to ask was, the work that you've been doing in the last couple of decades has been in youth work, but youth work has kind of butted up against big business. You're working, in the King's Cross area, or just outside the King's Cross area, and you've been able to develop incredible relationships with kind of the businesses around and like the building companies around. So much so that you won a competition, right, for a £500,000 fit out or £500,000 building. Can you tell me the story?
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, I took that direction of taking a youth group, a charity, to meet the businesses because I saw this development happening when I first came into the area. The chalk pit's being turned into this amazing cold drops yard.
Yeah,
and it is amazing. The architecture is fantastic. Yeah. And early on I made myself known to certain people. And particularly a guy called Roger Madlin, he was the CEO of Argent.
Argent being the developers.
Yeah. And we used to meet monthly when it first started and just chat about the area, community, how it might engage. And he was very, very, very good, very proactive, a risk taker.
Yeah. And just before you carry on with the story, that's interesting in itself for me. So it's not every day that you have you get yourself introduced, or you make the introduction yourself to the CEO of a huge developer like that. So, how did you do that? Right, what was the process?
So, I mean on reflection, on reflecting on that, and there's a few people that I managed to hit up, if you like, and they liked me, obviously, liked what I stood for. But I think in doing it, I mean, there was another big developer called Peter Milliken who had the King's Place, where the Guardian's based, and him as well. He became a good ally as well.
So there's amazing lessons to be learned here from this part of the story. You can be anybody, but yet follow a certain path. Creating relationships, and in the end, that it ends with relationships with very kind of important, powerful people of influence.
Yeah.
So how did you do that?
So when I saw the model, it goes back to seeing the model of what King's Cross was going to look like, and then listening to local people saying that's never going to happen. Yeah. And it's going to happen because the planning's going through and it's going to happen. But there was lots of stalling between the start of the build because of planning permission. But I knew it was going to happen. So I was, again, comes back down to determination, learn from boxing, from sticking in there, learn from boxing, resilience. I needed to be growing with this development because I sort of went into the area in the first place because of this development. Yeah. After seeing, Notting Hill, Brixton, Canary Wharf, all these type of places not necessarily work out for local people. Yeah. I want to be part of this for myself, and that's why I went into that area. So part of that journey had to be about talking to the people that were making this happen. Yeah. And the people behind it. So I went right in. Yeah, I literally went right into meetings, and I accessed some funding. From Children in Need. Children in Need it was from. No, Comic Relief, sorry. It was from Comic Relief. Yeah. And it was funding that enabled me to take young people on this journey for 3 years, more or less the start of this development. So it was part of my role because of the funding and reporting back. This is what I needed to be doing. But you can see I take my job seriously. So. And this is what turned me into a social entrepreneur, was that I didn't see anyone doing this. I saw no one doing this. No one was going to these developers, to the corporations coming in and looking at where we're going to be in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
Where's this community going to be? We're here, you're here, we're across the road. There's an invisible barrier being built. This can't happen. So I was going in, and I think I do speak quite frankly, and I try and speak clearly. And this was my approach with these people. So either they could really look at what was going on and say, hold on a minute, this guy's got something to say here, or they could bury their head in the sand, or they could decide not to entertain me, not to engage me, and therefore they were either being silly because they weren't recognising what was going to happen, or they didn't want it to happen. They wanted there to be this fence there. And so a lot of the time I'm almost saying, do you want these people shut out, or do you want them to be part of this?
Yeah.
What do you want? Now I think they sort of wanted them to be shut out, and they wanted the community that were there to take everything on.
But was there an opportunity that you saw that you were able to sell to the developers and the big corporations?
That came further down the line.
Okay.
I mean, initially, the only opportunity there was because an organisation called Fluid came in to do all the consultation around it between the planning permission, etc. The opportunity there was to get local people involved, to show them that this was happening. Now, the older people in the community, you'd go to a community meeting, there'd be a few, what do you call them? The people who always want to make sure the change is right. Activists. Okay. There'd be a few activists in the meetings. Trust me, amazing. I used to be like, oh, here we go. Because they stand up at the end of the meeting and they'd be like, no, this can't happen. And we're not going until you guarantee us. Yeah. At first I used to be, I'm going to be here for another hour now. Then I realised these people are the saviour. Because if it weren't for them, not necessarily the developers, but everything that's going on would not give a shit about local people. Yeah. It's them who held it up for the rest of their community. So I learned this very quickly, and I was almost like a mediator between them and the developers, because I was on their side. They also knew we need to be in with the developers. Yes. So I think I read those situations pretty well. Yeah. I see what's needed, and I want to be in. You're better off on the inside than on the outside trying to get in. Yes. Activists stay on the outside and they're just arguing their point. Yeah. I go on the inside and I try and make the change from the inside. Yeah. And you'll always find someone in these places who gets it. And as long as that's a decision maker, someone with a bit of authority, clout, you're somewhere. Yeah. And I think that's what I managed to do. And a lot of the time I was the only one speaking on behalf of the community, other than the few activists in there. Yeah. I was the only one really I was certainly from young people's perspective, saying that they're the next generation to come here. So my work around that led me to work with Roger Madley and Peter Milliken. And
we were alluding just before to the opportunity that you were selling into them. Yeah. The opportunity to kind of bring down that invisible barrier and have the people from kind of across the road brought into the... what is still the opportunity?
So I think it's about soul. It's about, real... places being more meaningful, etc. And I think that when you build something like it was quite sterile, and it still holds a lot of that. I was there on Sunday night. I was cycling actually, and I went round there, and I was like, "Whoa, this place is dead still." I mean, they know what's coming when Google opens up. They know what's coming there. It's going to be crazy. Yeah. But local people do bring in something that's very special. Yeah. And I think even when you've got people coming from all over the world into that space, the feel that they've come to not a place where it's like all international, but actually there are real people there, is also what people that come into the country, into King's Cross, want to see. So I remember doing some early work with some around the consultation, and them asking about them talking about the shops that were coming in there, and I said, and I was saying, you need to have a few regular shops, Gap, Henny's, a couple of those shops that local people recognise, because they're drawn in. And you need to have some of those local people working in those shops, because if people come in and see people they know and people they're familiar with, it's cool. It makes it really, really nice. And if you don't, and they did miss that trick, they didn't really put anything that people know there. They put, the only one is
the waitress?
No, well, not even waitress, because that's another level of pay,
Exactly.
you see, of sort of price.
Yeah.
The shop, they got an outlet, they got, is it Nike? Not Nike, there's an outlet sports shop basically.
Okay.
There's one of them, and that's down near the station.
Yeah.
Or down that little road that leads to the station. And that has done well because it's an outlet, so I think it's all a bit cheaper anyway.
Yeah.
But also it's a known space, a known brand, you know? None of the others are really known. So there was a number of things that, what with the not having prices of a cup of coffee and the bars and the restaurants, people kind of thought, I always remember when they did, after COVID, when they did a lot of reductions, and they did like, some places did half price on a Friday night and all that. I used to see all local people in there like going crazy, and I was just like, what's going on there? Like, it's half price, I can't believe it. They were trying to get as much as they could, like, you know. And I thought, you know, things like that would have been good to have done to inform the local people of more that was going, the things that were going on. There's a lot of events that go on there, they were never really informed.
Yeah.
I used to talk to Arjun about that. You know, the local people don't know, you know, where your marketing is just staying in here. It needs to go out.
Yeah.
And my continual sort of, you know, just trying to say it's not right, you know, these things are not right. And always saying the one thing that works here is the fountains.
Yes.
It's free,
Yes.
everyone gets wet, everyone looks the same.
Yeah.
You know, that's the one thing that works. And this, on a sunny day, it's still the best thing you'll see in King's Cross. Because you'll see kids, you'll see everyone, local people, students, people that work there, you'll see everyone there, like, you know. That works. The cinema, to a degree, the open air cinema, because it's free, bring your own drink, sit down. But people do say sometimes you're sitting next to people who think you shouldn't be there. That's what local people say. So they get that feeling, you know what I mean? So it works, but there's a little bit of I have a little bit of a reservation around that. But the fountains for sure. So when I won, so in winning the building, so the building was, they then had this building, they didn't know what to do with it. They couldn't put it into turn it into luxury flats because it was surrounded by some social housing. Couldn't turn it into a shop because there's not that much thoroughfare. But you know, you get a little bit.
Yeah.
But so what they did was they put it out to a competition. Who could make a proposal for this building? So I made a proposal for fish tank workshop, a workshop with an exhibition space at the bottom, and at the top, working creatives, young creatives. So this was my plan. I think the selling point.
And sorry to interrupt you. And the young people that you know, in this plan, were they the young people from like across the tracks, so the more disadvantaged side of the area?
So this is how this works. So everything has to have a plan, as I said before. You've got to be very careful how you put things together. Yeah. And how you manage things. You know, certainly projects of this type. So I put the project together with. I firstly wanted to use young people from CYP, Copenhagen Youth Project, because they're what I call the indigenous people of the area. They're the ones most disadvantaged. There were young people already in Fish Tank Incubator, who are young people who are aspirational, some from the area, some from outside the area, a bit of a mixed group, but the mix always works as well if it's done well. So I wanted to bring some of those young people. Then I contacted, this was a bit of luck, I contacted an architect I worked with on a community project, and she said to me, I don't work there anymore for that architect practice. I now work for Central St Martin's, lecturing architecture to first year students, first and second year. And I said, that's even better, because I want some of those students to come on a journey. So I got half a dozen from each group, and they all came together, and it was like a melting pot. It was fantastic. And what I told them what I want this to be, and they brought the vision to life. We did 12 workshops, brought that vision to life, and then we had our vision to sell. Went into the competition, 70 organisations went into it. It got shortlisted to 10. They got put in the visitor centres, the public voted. Then it got shortlisted to 5, we won out of 5. We presented to Argent with the other 4, and we won the building. 10-year lease, really nice building. And as you say, with a nice budget to completely decorate it out. And I always said, I walked in there actually. When I first walked in there, I looked at it. I was like, nah, I'm not interested really. I wasn't really that interested. It was such a mess, and it was bringing the students together. Because at that time I wasn't bothered whether I win or lose. I just do something. But when the students came together, this is what young people. This is the power they have.
Yeah.
They were the ones who were like, oh my God, what can we do with this? And then they started to look at it and visualise it and create it. And that was what really got me excited, motivated. And then presenting it, obviously, we won. And now it's finished. It's complete 2 years down the line. We've got a little team in there. We've got our first set of resident creatives in there. And now we will start bringing community in as well.
It's an amazing story. I want to take issue with one thing that you said. You had a stroke of luck. I don't believe it was luck, because you were having conversations all the time.
Yeah.
And you know there was an opportunity there that you created the conditions for it. So it wasn't luck. It was something of your own creation.
Yeah, I sort of use it. I do say this to people myself, and there's me saying luck, but I do when. A lot of the time it's not about luck, it is about how you've manoeuvred and how you've created space. I did a bit of work with Ted Baker at one time, I say this. So Ted Baker's offices at one time, they're not there at the moment. Well, they've gone under now.
They have, yeah.
But there's that
the big brown building.
Yeah,
what was it called?
Yeah, the ugly brown building. Ugly brown building.
Yeah.
So Ted Baker, I mean, Ray, I can't think of his Shroshlag, I think he's Shrosh. The founder. Yeah. So he got a lot of difficulties over a few years back with the Me Too campaign and a lot of bad practice as in terms of a business. One thing they did right was community. Their bit in the community was always really strong because, he was a founder, he had 4 friends, they founded this big organisation and rolled it out. Now, I know that what they did was they cared about the community they were in. So they always put back. He employed his children's history teacher as the historian in Ted Baker. So he did lectures in Ted Baker for all of the staff on fashion, on the area. This guy was amazing. So talk about corporate social responsibility. How they did that, that's how they used it. Yeah. He would come out and see you and look at projects and say, what could we do here? And really work with you on it in a really constructive way. So at our music studio, he came in and said, I think we can wire this out because we've got a team at Ted Baker. Won't cost us nothing to get them over here. We'll do that for you. Let me give you some passes for some of your young people who are looking into fashion brands. They can come, get expertise, talking about that gap. Yeah, they opened the door up. We would go into the ugly brown building, and inside it was far from ugly. It was lovely. Yeah. And it was an experience for young people, an experience for us. It was fantastic. And so he opened that first door that said to me, actually, this is possible because I found him. And through him, then I was introduced to the chairman at Havas. Had the same similar conversation with him. But
Havas being the French media conglomerate.
Yes, so that's where the fish tank incubator is based with Havas. Yeah. So we're in this fantastic building.
Beautiful building.
Amazing building. And again, managing to talk to the chair about the vision I had. He just said, "It's lovely, I love it. Come in, come in." It was literally like that. Yeah. And I also had an entrepreneur with me at the time when I met with him. And the entrepreneur who was with me actually had a really good company. And when before I met the chair, I met the head of creatives. And I met this young man with me, and she said to me, I see you brought a young person. I said, this is Ahmed, explain what you do. And he explained what he did. And then she said, I think maybe you could do, we've got a little job going on in King's Cross filming, maybe you could be a part of that. He said, maybe, I don't mind, but I've got my own thing going on. He went and worked for Havas for a year and did a lot of filming for him. This young man has a company called Dose of Society now, which is worldwide. It's a fantastic company. And he's doing big things now. And that was how we got introduced to Havas, because from there I said, I'd like to, who can I talk to about space in the building? She then introduced me to the guy who's now the chair, met him, and he just said, I love your idea, come in. And that's how we got into that building. And again, it was, people, working with people, knowing people. But creating, through the Ted Baker bit, creating relationships.
Creating relationships,
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think a lot in business especially, people have an idea of relationships as being transactional. But transactional relationships, they're very short term.
Yeah.
They don't last.
Yeah.
But when you can create meaningful business relationships, anything is possible.
So a lot of my premise starts from that point.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of calls, over the years, I have a lot of calls from a business saying, we've got 10 volunteers, they'd love to come and paint your building. Would you be interested? No, not really, because that's more work for me. Because it means I've got to close the centre, I've got to, make sure that it's ready for you guys to come in. Then you come and do your bit. While you do your bit, who knows what else is going to happen? What I might need to do, what I can't do. It's actually aggravation. But I tell you what, if you come to me and we have a conversation about who we are, what we do in the community, I can understand what you do, and maybe there's some synergy there, and we can have a relationship. Yeah, it might not be now, but further down the line, or there might be something else. But it's about relationship, and that's what I say to all of the businesses I come in touch with. It's not social. If you want to put it under corporate social responsibility, that's your deal.
Yeah.
I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Or what's it called now? It's not called corporate social responsibility anymore. They call it. There's another word for it now, anyway. But I said, I'm not really bothered. It's a relationship.
Yeah.
You might not be able to do anything for us, but at least you know who we are, you know what we do, you know what our aims and objectives are. If you come in touch with anyone else who might be able to support us, help us, then just pass it on. You might say, no, it's not for us, but I'd rather that than just have 6 people here painting when I don't need it painted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Stevie, I want to. We're losing the light outside, so I've no idea what it's looking like on camera. So we better wind down.
Yeah, sure.
Before I say thank you, like many podcasts, I have one final question to ask. So the podcast is called The Human Edge.
Yeah.
And what that's all about is what I'm interested in is understanding where is your edge? What is the thing that makes you still uncomfortable in life or in business? For me, as I keep saying, I'm trying to build this podcast up. I need to create an audience. In order to create an audience, then my profile needs to be higher, and that's uncomfortable for me. Getting myself out. That's my edge.
Yeah.
What's yours?
I think it is. I sort of talk about everywhere I go, I sort of have community behind me. I see everyone behind me. They're all there. And I suppose that gives me my edge. It's how can I progress people in these communities?
Yeah.
How can I support people in these communities? People will say to me, "What do you want out of it?" Sort of thing. Yeah, I want a good salary, but I also I want to do something while I'm in a position to be able to do something.
Yeah.
So I'm driven by that.
Yeah.
I'm driven by the fact that I can open doors.
Yeah.
I can have conversations. I talk from the heart. I say it as it is, and that drives me forward. It drives me forward because I have success, and I know I can have success. So I walk into somewhere, I know this can happen. This can work.
Do you feel the responsibility of the community, like standing?
No. I don't feel any. I do it because I get paid, obviously. But the purpose is to change things. If I can change, if I can make a difference in my little world, and that would be like, fish tank have this, they got this set up down here. And this is how some people I talk to, they say, I gave you the tour. I give people the tour, and they come and do the tour, and they're just like, this is great. Yeah. That's great for me. We all get off on something. That's what I get off on. Yeah. I get off on the fact that I'm setting things up. Yeah. They look good. Yeah. They work well. They have meaning. Yes. One of the big things is that they can be maintained. They have sustainability. Yeah. I don't want to start creating stuff that can only last a week or 2 weeks and then it's finished. Yes. And I see things like that a lot. Maybe a bit longer than a week or week. Maybe a year, 2 years. No, that can't be it. It's about sustaining things. It's about, and so when you leave the world, you leave, you have nothing. But if you can leave something behind, So it's about legacy, I suppose, as well.
Yeah.
And I think about that now. I don't think about not being here and there being a legacy, but I think about moving on to the next project and knowing that that project is, boom, is there.
Yeah. What a beautiful way to end the conversation.
Thank you,
Thanks so much
nice
for coming.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it too.